Let me start off today with two quick shoutouts. First, you may notice that I'm suddenly a lot more animated. That's thanks to the wonderful artist Jesse Nerisse, who has blessed me with some new icons. Now I can make all kinds of faces, like this one, and this one, and this one! I linked her art page down below, give her some love. Speaking of love, let me also give a shout out to the lovely mammals at ZNN, a website that showcases the best offerings of the Zootopia fandom. They featured my last Zootopia video and said some really nice things that I am still riding high on. Their kindness has touched the blackened heart of this lesser-known YouTube reviewer. Go check them out if you haven't heard of them, but you probably have, because approximately 100% of the traffic for that video was thanks to them. Really, I can't thank them enough. Their support means so much to me, both emotionally and, practically. Alright, so, perhaps the most common criticism leveled at classic Disney is the lack of moral complexity. Good guys are pure and innocent, bad guys are, obvious. And for a long time, that was fine. They're fairy tales. The stories aren't supposed to be too complicated, things are straightforward. But the recent renaissance has bucked that trend. Disney's protagonists are no longer infallibly pure, and that allows for new and powerful moral lessons. Hiro Hamada shows us that grief, unless dealt with healthily, can lead good people to do terrible things. Maui warns us of the dangers of helping others for selfish reasons. And then there's our very own Judy Hopps. I think Zootopia's ultimate success in terms of moral lessons is that it teaches children that good people, heroic people, can be wrong about important things. That message would be meaningless if Judy wasn't likable and sympathetic. Instead, she's a character we're fully invested in, and that makes her mistakes carry real weight. Honestly, Judy's moral fiber is probably a video unto itself. There's someone else I want to talk about instead. A character who I find fascinating, but who seems to have been more or less overlooked in discourse around the film. I refer, of course, to former Mayor LEODORE Licentious Lover Lionheart. That's not his real middle name. Lionheart only appears in the film for a total of 4.5 scenes. We see him at Judy's graduation, we get a brief glimpse of how he acts in the office, we see him main deep in some conspiracy stuff that promptly gets him arrested, and finally, he gets a word in during the ending montage. Not a lot of screen time overall, but hey, still more lines than Finnick got. We see some interesting characterization in these scenes, but what fascinates me more is what we don't get to see. His underlying motivations. I think Lionheart is a truly ambiguous character, and that's incredible for a Disney movie. Lionheart's main arc in the film is to counteract Bellwether's plot. In doing so, he serves as a fake-out antagonist for Judy to stop before she later learns the whole truth. He handles the situation as a politician would. Well, a politician who apparently has a private army of wolves. Man, I want a private army of wolves. Lionheart knows that something is turning predators, and only predators, savage. He gets his wolves to secure, contain, and protect the afflicted animals at Cliffside Asylum, and has at least one doctor investigating the issue. Crucially though, he keeps his operation a secret from the ZPD and the city at large.
We cannot keep it a secret. We need to come forward.
Great idea. Tell the public. And how do you think they're gonna feel about their mayor, who is a lion?
Now here's the crux of my fascination with him. It's all summed up in this brief exchange.
You don't understand! I was trying to protect the city!
You were just trying to protect your job.
No, listen, we still don't know why this is happening. It could destroy Zootopia.
You know the remarkable thing about LEODORE Lionheart, the thing that makes him really stand out to me. We don't know his morality. We're presented with two very compelling motivations for him. Protect the city he's mayor of, or protect his own career and image. We're not given enough information to definitively choose one over the other. And, what's more, they aren't mutually exclusive. Most likely he was driven by a combination of both, but we can't say which was more pressing for him. We'll never know for sure, and that's kind of amazing. Lionheart claims he's innocent, but he would, wouldn't he? He's a career politician. He has nothing to gain from admitting he was protecting himself, even if it was true. So what we have is a choice between one of two Lionhearts. An honest Lionheart, who's telling the truth when he says he was trying his best to protect Zootopia, and a dishonest Lionheart who says the exact same thing because it's the best lie available to him. Isn't that delicious? It's like a riddle. One tells the truth, the other only lies. Lionheart defends himself at 2 points. First, when Judy arrests him, where he brushes aside her accusation quickly to draw her attention back to the savage predators. Again, This fits both interpretations. Honest Leo is concerned for the city and knows the problem isn't solved yet. Dishonest Leo is eager for anything that might distract the officer arresting him. Secondly, in his interview at the end, he admits wrongdoing but insists it was for the right reasons. But pay attention to how he says it.
Did I falsely imprison those animals? Well, yes, I did.
Sound familiar? It's Nick's advice on public speaking.
Well, was this a tough case? Yes, it was.
This is a fun callback, but it also tells us that Lionheart is handling this interview in politician mode. He could be telling the truth. He could be lying through his pointy teeth. We just don't know. Also, oh my god, I only realized this as I was making the video, hence the hasty inclusion. The banner at the bottom of the screen clearly says that prior to this, Lionheart was silent. He wasn't rattling his bars, screaming how the problem wasn't solved. Before Bellwether was stopped, he kept his mouth shut. That's a classic tactic for politicians who know they're in the wrong. But it was also a perfect opportunity to turn himself into a martyr. One he did not take until after the danger had passed. Make of that what you will. Now, some of you may be thinking it's weird that I'm praising something that isn't there. Maybe the fact we're unsure of his morality just means he's not written clearly enough, right? I don't think so. Sure, it's possible, but I think this was deliberate. You have to remember, this film has superbly tight writing. If they wanted more characterization for Lionheart, they could find a way to include it. In the current version, they fit a huge amount into one word.
Okay, I heard you, Bellwether. Just take care of it. Please.
Look at that face. That is the face of a lion who has only just remembered how to interact with other people in public. When you're the mayor. It would have been very easy to write Lionheart as a straightforward hypocrite. He acts nice in public and he's actually mean. But all that changes with that short word, please. He knows this behavior is out of line, but he can only stop himself after he's done it. Presumably it's because of the stress of the night howler epidemic, trying to handle this terrifying crisis, in secret no less. Don't get me wrong, he is a jerk. His treatment of Bellwether is professionally inexcusable, regardless of how stressed he may be. But in that brief moment, the writers, and his A+ voice actor J.K. Simmons, show another side to him. He's complex. He doesn't fit neatly into a box. Now, if any of you remember my Lion King videos, in which case I am so sorry. You'll recall that I never had too high an opinion of Lionheart's inspiration, Mufasa. Mufasa was, to paraphrase Rick Sanchez, the de facto patriarch of both Simba's family and his universe. He served a very important role in the narrative. Someone for Simba to look up to, try to emulate, and ultimately avenge. But when you look at Mufasa's actions, there's plenty of room for criticism. Why are hyenas, an entire species, forbidden from the Pride Lands? Because Mufasa banned them. Why did he ban them? Shrug emoji. These details are just to fit the narrative. The movie needs secondary antagonists, and Mufasa needs something concrete to do in his position as king. We're not actually supposed to question the merits of his xenophobic foreign policy. By contrast, Zootopia doesn't need a perfect father figure for its story. In fact, as a noir film, albeit a very bright and colorful noir film, it needs imperfect father figures. From Judy's literal imperfect father, to the overly stern Chief Bogo, to, of course, the morally ambiguous Lionheart. As we follow Judy's investigation, we're free to question Lionheart's motivations. To an extent, we're encouraged to. We're not expected to take Lionheart at face value. In fact, a theme of the whole movie is deceiving appearances. Nick, Bellwether, and even Finnick all turn out to be very different people from what the audience would expect from them based on their introductions. Heck, Nick gets 2 reveals. Friendly dad becomes cynical hustler becomes kind-hearted partner. Like a cinematic onion. So I don't think Lionheart's motivations being obscured is a writing error. I think it's a deliberate choice, and an excellent one at that. It's a complex story with complex characters. The audience isn't spoon-fed. We're free to come to our own conclusions. Let me tell you something. The fan wiki is a beautiful invention. I read something about Lionheart on the dedicated Zootopia wiki that pushed me to make this into a full video. Get this. Never, in all his screen time, does Lionheart ever say anything prejudiced against other mammals. And that's pretty significant considering he's a major antagonist in a film about prejudice. Every other major figure has their moments. Characters like Bellwether are obvious, as is Judy's unfortunate track record.
And just a real articulate fella.
Nick, major victim of discrimination himself, lets out some questionable statements, ironic or otherwise.
Timberwolves. Look at these dum-dums.
Even well-meaning characters like Clawhauser accidentally cause microaggressions, while Chief Bogo, who for so long manages to keep his disdain for Judy on a purely professional level, can't resist sinking to a petty jab.
Sir, I know what I saw. He almost killed us.
Or maybe any aggressive predator looks savage to you rabbits.
But Lionheart never says anything of the sort. Part of that comes from the ambiguity of having so few lines. Maybe he's the most racist character in the whole film and we just don't hear it. But the reverse could also be true. Take, for example, Aaron Burr, sir. Was he shifty and just angling for power? Sure, but how many male feminists can you claim to know of in this period of postpartum politics? Show of hands. Which decorated war vet saw fit to fight for a legislative bill that would have granted women voting rights? Not Alexander Hamilton, that's for darn sure. Look it up, that bill was by his old battle buddy Burr. I am not Lin-Manuel Miranda, so I regret to report that the rest of this video will not rhyme. My point is that people are complicated. Just as Judy can be a heroic person overall and still hold terrible biases, Lionheart can be a morally questionable person with some truly admirable convictions. Again, it would have been so easy to reveal him as a two-bit hypocrite. In the opening, he sings Judy's praises, but she later discovers him saying in private that a rabbit could never be a good cop and the whole thing was just PR. But that never happened. Nothing remotely like it happened. That alone is pretty significant. Characterization by omission. He seems genuinely invested in his mammal inclusion initiative. In fact, it's the basis of his entire political career. Promotional materials even allege that he coined the phrase, "In Zootopia, anyone can be anything," a phrase Judy quotes in the prologue, meaning that if we take that claim at face value, he's been saying it for years, loud enough for children in other towns to hear it. It's his whole thing. But here again that ambiguity comes back in, this time working against him. Maybe he's a flawed person who truly, genuinely believes in making the world a better place for bright young mammals like Judy. Or maybe the whole thing is just a fantastic way to win votes. Bellwether says the city is 90% prey. As a predator politician, Lionheart needs their support to survive. Maybe Lionheart is just doing what it takes to hold power. It happened to be something positive, but if the political winds shifted, he'd follow the change. We don't know for sure. Maybe we never will. Here's another fun fact I learned from the wiki. In a follow-up children's book, which is only dubiously canon, man, talk about Lion King nostalgia, it is revealed that not only was Lionheart released from prison, he managed to resume his position as mayor. I hope they don't stick with this. First off, it's unlikely. Zootopia may be a colorful movie starring a bunny cop and a fox in a Hawaiian shirt, but when it comes to politics, it's actually very grounded. Lionheart getting re-elected would work in a more cartoony story, where the voting public is portrayed as being very stupid for comedic effect, but here it just seems ridiculous. More than that though, I think the fact Lionheart was still incarcerated was a better ending for him. Even if you subscribe to the most charitable interpretation of his character, he still broke the law. He still kept the crisis a secret from, if not the public, then at least Chief Bogo. Keeping him in prison serves as an important lesson for kids. Yes, you absolutely can do the wrong thing for the right reasons, but if you do, even if you can explain how and why your reasons were right, it was still the wrong thing, and you can't necessarily expect others to see things from your perspective, including a judge and jury. That's just how the world works. Impossible choices have consequences. Also, this doesn't relate to anything, but this mug is my favorite joke in the entire film. He repurposed a gift from his children. That's awful. You're the worst, Lionheart. I love you. Well, that's all I got. How do you feel about Lionheart? Do you give him the benefit of the doubt, or do you think he was just a villain who happened to end up fighting a different villain? Let me know in the comments. Like I said, this is really down to personal interpretation, and that's amazing. I'll see you later for my next Zootopia video. Would Judy Hopps kill a man? The answer may surprise you.
It's yes.
Well, what did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss? Come home to this. I had my first cabinet meeting today.
You'll recall that I never had too high an opinion of Mulan. Everyone loves Mulan. It's my favorite Disney movie set in China.